I have this very, very huge fascination and curiosity over things that are otherwise not acceptable in society. So, for example, telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance. These are things that are otherwise intangible, but are gifts known to men. For us, everybody has this ability if it's nurtured. But if I just give you a background of what's been going on in my life, life in the Philippines, what that's like, it's not an easy childhood. Okay, I was given a lot of responsibility as a young kid because I was the firstborn. I was the firstborn grandchild of the family, and my grandpa, adored you. I was the first baby, and so he loved kids. And so he cherished me a lot, but gave me a lot of responsibility. Because after me, then the babies started coming in, my younger cousins from my aunts and uncles, they started, coming in to the fold of the family, and we're all growing up together. And I became sort of like the second parent, as a kid. My grandpa told me that I am to be responsible for their being, and therefore, if they're not around, I should be responsible enough to take care of them. And that's what life is like. So a lot of responsibilities as a young kid. Looking back at that, in fact, I viewed it as, wow, you're way too, hard on me. That's how I looked at it. And no kid will see it as a delight, right? No kid will see that. Yeah, give me some responsibilities, mom and dad, I viewed it just like any other kid. I wanted to play. Why are you giving me this responsibility? And furthermore, why should I look out after him? Why should I watch them? And just because I'm a girl, why should I be taking care of the babies? Right? So, it is all for good reasons. My grandpa, who's the one that's very close to me, and he's the one that has made a very, very significant impact in my life today, even now, instill in me a very disciplinarian, militaristic kind of upbringing, But at the same time, he taught me actually how to be, in a way, a woman. How a woman should behave, how a woman should conduct herself in the presence of another man. He was my first love. Let me just put it like that. Okay? So already there is a discovery of self here. There is already a journey of the self. He's helping me through that. Am I able to regurgitate this when I was a kid? Of course not. I didn't know this at the time. I was not aware of this. But he was. I've always viewed my grandpa as very wise and knowledgeable. He didn't go to college, but growing up, I saw there's a huge library on the second floor of the home that I grew up in, just full of books, both military in subject, but also there's a lot of books on metaphysics, self-development, world history. But definitely, there was this one particular book that he and I actually fought over to the point where I stopped talking to him because I was upset. And this is called The Book of the Unknown. This is from a Reader's Digest. It was The Book of the Unknown, and I had told my mom She was already living in America, in California at the time. I said, hey, Mom, can you buy this book and send it back home and make sure that it is assigned to me, my name. But my grandpa's a reader, and that's where I got that from. I was a reader as a kid. I was just, man, I actually love reading, but I didn't like reading textbooks. So he and I fought over that book. And this is funny, but he took it from me, kept it somewhere in hiding. I managed to find it. I took it back by stealing it back, and I kept it for myself. And I never showed him that I actually got the book. Okay, so there's just this going back and forth for that. Okay, the reason why I love that book was because I have this very, very huge fascination and curiosity over things that are otherwise not acceptable in society. So, for example, it talked about telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance. These are things that are otherwise intangible, but are gifts known to men. For us, everybody has this ability, and that's what this book is saying, if it's nurtured. I started reading this early on in my life, and I said, wow, if only I could do them. And so the book was about this thick, and I was just managing to go through it day and night. I wasn't reading my textbooks. I wasn't doing my assignments as a kid, in grade school. But this is what I was just so fascinated over. It talked about psychic abilities. What? We can foretell the future? And I wasn't understanding a lot of it, but in my young mind at the time, that if this is a possibility and if somebody wrote this, it means that somebody has experienced this. I don't know who, because I hadn't made it to the US yet, okay? At that time, I hadn't. And so I was just like immersed in this subject. And I remember thinking, I'm going to try it. I want to be able to move objects. I want to be able to move things with my mind without touching it. Because I remember thinking too, even watching movies, I like movies that are about this very subject. Like the movie with Scott Baio in it. I think it's called Snap. I think that's the movie where he's able to move things with his mind. I love that movie so much, because it is something that's out of the ordinary, and a lot of Filipinos view that as witchcraft, or that is not according to the Bible, because like I said, I grew up in a Catholic family, and that would be considered taboo, but this is why I wanted to keep all of those books that I read about metaphysics from them, because they might think that I'm going into the occult. But I didn't view it as that. To me, I viewed it as I had a curious mind. I want to explore it. I want to discover, and I want to see if I could do it myself. Part of that book also was talking about creatures that would otherwise be not known in society unless it's just in folklore stories, myths. These would be considered myths, like vampires, Dracula, mummies, mummies that are coming from Egypt. Always was. That's always the connection, right? Because we mummify in Egyptian, there's that practice. And there are movies that I've watched in the past where I would see these mummies coming into life and they would offer me bad. I was fascinated with that because it's not something, ordinary. It's not something that you'll see in society. Werewolves also is something that was part of that Book of the Unknown, and I was just so thrilled by that. Oh, you mean there are other beings besides us? I don't know if they do exist, because then somehow I grew up, right? I started growing up, but one thing that I held very true in my heart are the gifts of the extrasensory perception. Is what was referred to as in that book of the unknown. So in grade school, I had that book, and I wasn't a great stellar student, back in grade school, because like I said, I didn't pay attention in class because my mind was more interested in learning the things that are more invisible. Okay, things that are most Filipinos would consider that's out of this world. Okay, but in fact, it's not so much, if you consider that, if I'm looking back now, it's not so much it's out of this world. It is very much part of who we are. It is very much part of this world. It's just that we have decided as a people, as a nation, to not pay attention to that anymore. Okay, by society standards, because of religious climate in the Philippines, where most people are being told, turn to your church, turn to your priest for advice. If you need to confess, you go confess to a priest, right? So everything has been taught to you where you got to look outside of yourself for help. But to me, in my mindset at that time, well, it's not that I couldn't formulate it to this point, to this degree then, but to me, why not rely on the self, And that's why I was heavily interested in that extrasensory perception, because it is something that you can do. That means you wouldn't rely on anybody. If you can do this and master this, and you can practice it and you can do it, then you can become self-reliance, which is what my grandpa has been teaching me all along anyway, right? I had some guilt there because I was raised Catholic and I was told to, look outside of myself for advice, especially when it comes to spirituality, right? Turn to the nuns because they know better. Turn to the priests because they know better. Turn to the Bible because the Bible, you will find a lot of wisdom in there, But I think we have forgotten another piece of the equation here, and that is the person, that is me.
This series and many others can only be found exclusively on Amexem. Quickly sign up with our 3-step process to get started. The link to access your trial is in the description below. We'll see you in the next chapter. Peace and love.